Attention, fellow e-gamers. Patch 9.5 hits pro play this week, and because I don't trust any of you to be able to read, I'm going to speak slowly and use small words to help you understand what this patch means for pro play. Upon pontificating on the inordinately transmogrified tactical stratagems dauntlessly indentured by legendary League of Legends legends, whereupon they've surmised Pareto-efficient recapitulations of training regimens, I am confident this entire paragraph meant nothing. Multifaceted, omnimedia, synergy. It's simple. Lots of things happened this patch. First and foremost, 1.5 reworks to Kayle and her sister Morgana. Kayle saw all kinds of huge changes, and in short, her goal is to survive until level 16, whereupon she can absolutely take over a game. However, we are seeing very little solo queue play on her from pros around the world. My opinion is that she is actually an exceptional top laner, and people will come to learn her power, but probably not right away. On the Morgana side of things, she gained some movement speed during Soul Shackles. Ultimately, she got stronger, and I think we should be seeing her in pro play. She's especially valuable now as more teams are looking at high damage carries like Kai'Sa, Tristana, and Sivir, and those are worth protecting with Black Shield. Now let's talk about the non-rework changes that matter for pro play. Akali, Neeko, Rakan, Gangplank, Graves, Jhin, Sylas, Vi, and Conqueror all got changes that matter, and will go in order of importance. Akali was, back in the day, thrown in the dumpster a few patches ago, but today she regained some of her former glory. She got some nice usability buffs to her passive movement speed and her shroud's invisibility duration. She is also harder to see by enemy turrets, shrinking their detection range of her under Twilight Shroud to just their attack range. A moderate buff to her ultimate's cooldown rounds out the Akali changes that matter for this patch, and they take her from 0 to hero, placing her as a completely viable top and mid laner. Next up is Neeko, a champion who was buffed in 9.5 and is going to be so overpowered bonkers that every single team in the world should have been willing to first pick or ban her outright. And this show was going to go on and say how coaches who fail to do that should be fired for not understanding what champions are good. But on Monday, she got hotfixed nerfed because WMAX and Blade of the Rune King into Ginsu's Rageblade made her the strongest champion in League of Legends. Here's a graph that shows how much that auto-attack DPS went down in the hotfix, and it is a lot, it is a whole lot. In short, on-hit Neeko is probably dead and gone, and good riddance. Of course, chameleons, though, are all about adaptation, and since she kept the big buffs to her Tangle Barb's duration, I'm expecting a lot of successful Neeko games as a true mage. In pro play, she'll be up there. Next up is Sylas, who is sadly riding the bench during most of 9.4, as he was globally disabled in pro for some bugs. 9.5's changes actually do make him even stronger if he's willing to max Q and build ability power, but this does hurt his tank build pretty heavily. Tank Sylas is probably dead and gone, while AP Sylas again got buffed. Overall, assuming he'll be unshackled from the disabled champions list, he will be a top performer in champs like this patch. But last I have heard, he is still on the bench, still globally disabled, maybe next week. Next up is Graves, who got a meme-worthy +3 attack damage. But the thing is, he auto-attacks so much that 3 AD is actually pretty meaningful, and it's a pretty big power up for this patch. What he's not getting is a lot of attention in solo queue, but I do think he is pro-viable, and we might see him occasionally. Gangplank has been outside the pro scene, and there are some pretty good reasons. He's weak overall in high-level play, and his good matchups aren't champions we see in pro play right now, so it's not even a counter pick. That said, a small buff to his early game barrels against champions, and a substantial buff to his ultimate's damage might make for the occasional Gangplank pick, especially if teams want to play more around bottom lane and focus some dives with cannon barrages increased damage, making those dives work. He has some early power spikes with Triforce, and we know that early game does seem to matter here in pro play right now, so maybe he will rear his ugly head. Next up is Jhin, who got some extra damage for his Q, and it's possibly enough to foreshadow some pro play. The bottom lane champion pool is pretty wide for champion select, so while Jhin is definitely powerful enough for pro, teams need to want him for something, as there are other options for bottom lane. Next up is Rakan, who might be seeing play as well. Back in 9.2, he got some very large nerfs to his durability and his engage tools, and it took him from 90% presence in Pro to less than 9%. But now, he is getting some of his W power back in a way that even Zach De La Roca would be happy about. We can see how much faster he gets to his target and gets to the knockup here with a graph. This fringe pick was normally seen alongside Xayah, who is another, and makes him a strong engage option overall. And with that extra speed and damage on the rank up of W, it might be worth it. As you can see here, close range Ws hit a lot faster, long range Ws still a bit quicker after these buffs. Next up, there is a slim chance we will see Vi come out of the woodwork. She got a really significant update to her kit this patch, which siphoned off some of her attack damage ratios and gave her back some extra tankiness and crowd control. Maxing Vault Breaker into Denting Blow second is the correct build now and should let her dive onto the backline and really wreak havoc in the face of some poor squishies. I've been seeing spotted interest from her in solo queue from pros. Most notably, Meteos has put some games on her, so we might see Optic Gaming take the lead here. Either way, I think she is viable. Finally, we also saw a nerf to the Conqueror Keystone rune. Generally speaking, there weren't any champions being propped up by its power level. For example, Rek'Sai can easily transition back to Hail of Blades or something else. Riven is still powerful after the nerfs, but it is still a change, and we might see a few less fighter-style top laners and junglers as a result of Conqueror losing more of its bonus attack damage and ability power. Now, as far as I can tell, there weren't any good Conqueror mages out there, so it's not really going to change anything, but it wasn't the dominant option to begin with, so not a big deal. The rest of the changes in this patch probably aren't going to affect very much. Yorick's Maiden lost some attack damage, but still quite viable as a champion. Dr. Mundo and Cho'Gath got some buffs to their respective E abilities, and while I think they're both powerful and worthy of plays, we aren't seeing pros try them out in solo queue just yet. The last honorable mention would be Skarner, who has better spires. You don't cheat your own minimap anymore. Maybe that one comes through. Overall, this patch mostly ended up being buffs to some underused champions in pro play, but Jace, Zoe, LeBlanc, Lucian, and Lissandra are all unnerfed and will remain near the very, very top of pro presence. However, the addition of Neeko at a very high pick and ban rate might shake things up a little bit. Overall, though, none of the new buffs look to be meta warping, but we might see a little bit of pickup if pros want to branch out. This is the outro.